Ryan Reynolds here for, I guess, my 100th Mint commercial. No, don't. No. I mean, honestly, when I started this, I thought I only have to do like 4 of these. I mean, it's unlimited premium wireless for $15 a month. How are there still people paying 2 or 3 times that much? I'm sorry, I shouldn't be victim blaming here. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/save. Whenever you're ready.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See details.
How do you feel great on vacation? Like really good? Easy. You go to Aruba. You'll spend your time relaxing on cool white sand beaches and floating in healing blue water. You'll immerse yourself in natural wonder and find your center on an island where things move at your speed. You won't just feel great, you'll feel relaxed, renewed, and ready for life. That's the Aruba effect. Plan your trip at Aruba.com.
Hello. Welcome back to Peak Northwest, an outdoors and travel podcast by the Oregonian and Oregon Live, dedicated to the adventure and exploration of our beautiful Pacific Northwest. I'm Vicki Connor.
And I'm Teresa Mahoney. Together, we take you to some of the most beautiful and interesting destinations in our region, discussing where to go, what to do, and places to see.
And today we are headed east out to the Wallowas for an epic 2-week solo backpacking trip. And joining us back on the pod today to tell us about his experience is breaking news and enterprise reporter Fedor Zarkhin. Fedor, thanks for joining us.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Okay, so you headed out to the Wallowas for this epic 2-week trip. Give us kind of an overview about this grand backpacking trip of yours.
So, I had some time to burn. Normally, I try in the summers or in September to go to Russia to hang out with my family. This year and last year, didn't do that. So I just had some extra time. And when I first started at the Oregonian 10 years ago, like a week, it's in like a week, it'll be 10 years. The outdoors reporter at the time, Terry Richards, said something. He said to me that anyone who moves to Oregon and lives here long enough figures out that the Wallowas are like the place to go, the place to be. And that's really stuck in my head the whole time, but it's so far away that I just never really took the trip out there. I mean, I've been to Hell's Canyon on a short backpacking trip, but never really went into the Wallowas. It was just always this like unexplored, mystical, amazing area in my mind. So now, with the season, the camping season kind of coming to an end and just having some time, I thought, why don't I try to do this? This would be a challenge. Maybe this will get me on the famous Peak Northwest podcast, So I decided to plan something epic, and here we are.
And so for those who don't know, could you describe briefly the Wallowas and what you can kind of see there and what makes it so epic?
So it's like an island mountain range almost in the Eagle Cap Wilderness. So what it's really known for is the lakes. Like the mountain lakes are just all across this area with glaciers and with, multi-thousand foot cliffs and mountain goats and wildflowers and meadows and streams, just all of it in a very compact kind of space with just seemingly like infinite variety. While it's remote, like it's been remote in terms of distance from Portland, it's also reasonably accessible through Joseph. And until recently, from my understanding, it's been kind of like not undiscovered, but in the sense of like it hasn't been at the very top of people's lists. That's changing apparently, which of course I understand.
So for this 2-week trip, I've been out to the Wallowas before, and I've done those little day hikes. They're great. They're incredible. But you really wanted to experience the Wallowas. So 2 weeks, what were you kind of mapping out as your trip here?
So I used this app called Gaia GPS to try to figure out how I'm going to do 2 weeks. So I had a bunch of different things I wanted to do. I wanted to get to the top of Eagle Cap. I wanted to get to the top of Matterhorn, and I wanted to walk a reasonable amount of miles while after in 2 weeks, right? So this kind of like scheming, this process was, it took a lot of time because I kept changing the little minor parameters because I couldn't really know how I was going to do, right? Because I've never gone for this long. And part of me was worried, what if after day 2 or day 3 or day 4, I'll just say, you know what, this is too much, or maybe I'll bring too much food, or whatever might happen, or I'll start losing my mind from being alone, So I wanted to break it up I was going to break up the trip into 2 parts, because I know I can't carry 2 weeks of food, no matter how little I eat. And I wanted to walk an approximately equal distance first half and second half. So I planned for about 50 to 60 miles first week, 50 to 60 miles second week. Talked to some friends who'd gone on longer trips and read up on this, obviously. And what I learned from different people is that generally the way it goes with these kinds of longer trips is at first it's super hard and you walk less miles. Like a good goal is 8 to 10 or so miles a day, depending, of course, on elevation gain. And then by the end of the second week, I should be, like the Terminator, just walking 15, 16 miles a day, just, but also eating a lot more calories. So I kind of planned with that general idea in mind, taking, using that as a very basic framework for how much I was going to walk the first half, and how much I was going to walk the second half, how much food I was going to take, first and second half. And, I had a spreadsheet with like the days mapped out, 14 days, with the exact food I was going to take for each of those days, the amount of calories in each of those things, and how much they each weighed, to calculate how much weight I was going to have in the first week, second week, how many calories I was going to have per day, and so forth, which I think is vital. Like I don't think you can really wing this if you don't want to find yourself either with too much food carrying too much weight, or just like without enough food. I think you have to do something very precise like this. So things turned out a little bit differently than I hoped and expected, but it was all for the best.
Say more. I feel like you just left us on a cliffhanger.
Oh, did I?
It wasn't as expected.
So what happened was I planned to eat like 2,500 or so calories, between 2,000 and 2,500 every day for the first week, and to anywhere between 3,000 and 3,500 the second week. And I planned to do a bunch of side routes and to walk, a decent amount of miles. And the second week's food I put in a box and took it to the Wallowa Lake Resort. Very kind folks, Terrence, helped me out there, just held on to this box for me. And the second week when I went and packed up my stuff, it just so happened that very day, that day 6, I had just run out of most of my food. I had like no snacks left. And I was just feeling like, oh man, I'd like a snack, and like, oh, I got nothing. And it was like right after that I went to resupply with this box that was just like too much food, way too much food. And from there, I walked to Aneroid Lake, and like those 6 miles, 6 or 7 miles walking to Aneroid Lake, that was brutal. That was just really horrific. Like, so I don't know if this is, I don't know how many medical details you want, but basically, like when there's too much physical exertion, I'll get nosebleeds sometimes. And about day 3, I started getting like a lot of nosebleeds. It was fine. It was tolerable, But then going up to Aneroid Lake, it was just like real bad. And at some point, I'm just like lying down on this trail, and I see this young couple walking up the trail towards me, and they just see me, and I'm in a condition that is not a pretty sight. And their eyes go wide. They're like, "Are you okay? Do you need help?" I'm like, "Oh no, it's okay. I'm just, They're like, "Well, we'll come back and get you if we don't see you in the next, in the next 30 minutes to an hour." It was. I'm glad I didn't have my phone to see myself, or like a mirror or anything like that. Because
so you left your phone at home, or
yeah, I left it in the car. Yeah, I left it in the car just because. Well, part of the goal here was to disconnect from all the freaking constant scrolling through this and that, man, like the YouTube rabbit holes of like political junk that I find myself engaging with on a regular basis. It's just, I'm just like, stop it, make it stop, make it go away. But no, just a little bit more of this garbage, you know? So I just wanted to not have any of that. And I also just wanted to not I wanted to not be able to just at any moment see where I am exactly on a map on my phone. And I also didn't want to have to worry about whether it's charged or not, or like, oh, I need to know where I am, so I'm going to turn the phone on for 5 seconds and check, and then I'm going to turn it off. Like, it's just such a waste of mental space. And I also knew that, like, if I had my phone, sure, I wouldn't have cell service, but still, say I'm like lying in my tent at night, I'm tired and bored. Oh, why not open it up and like read some of the saved articles from when I last opened the Washington Post, or open iBooks? Maybe there's something interesting, I just wanted to have none of that. And it's just, I think another, what I think I found is obviously, you become much more engaged with your surroundings if you have to rely on a compass and a map. Because to figure out where you are, you have to look at the landmarks. It's, you're counting the switchbacks to figure out to where you are. You have to guesstimate your speed, right? So and then guesstimate, okay, so I'll probably be at such and such a junction in an hour and a half at the pace I'm going. Then you get there and you kind of reassess based on the actual time. It's just a more involved process.
It's the lost skill of reading a map,
Oh yeah, I admittedly rely very heavily on Google Maps and all trails, and I would just be lost in the woods if I did.
Kids these days just don't understand.
Kids these days, that's
But I mean, just speaking of that, like I think it was because of that I got in this one situation where I was like actually like terror is a pretty strong word, but I was quite concerned for my well-being, I will say. And I think that the reason was that I didn't have a phone that could tell me exactly where I was and where I should be going. So
was there a certain area that, like, if anyone else were to do this, could find themselves sort of confused or lost, given like trails not being well marked or anything like that?
Absolutely not. In fact, because so I'm just going up this trail towards Polaris Pass, which is like one of the most beautiful places on the planet. Going up, and suddenly I see that this trail, like a very well marked trail, just kind of trails off towards this like rocky rocks, basically sticking out of like a pretty steep slope that's otherwise just covered in like rocks that can slide. They're not holding on to anything, and I'm like, that's weird. So I go to that next like big rock thing sticking out, and I'm like, this looks like pretty sketchy. I can't believe the U.S. Forest Service would have a trail going through here. And I kind of shimmy my way over to the next rock ledge, and I'm like, well, I don't see the trail, but obviously it's going to be going up because the Polaris Pass is up. So the hell with it, let's just climb up. So I start just like going up until I realize like the rocks are all sliding. It's getting increasingly steeper. Finally get to like some little ledge where I'm not going to be sliding down these rocks, and look around and I'm like, this is like, I really, really, really don't like this. And I have like a backpack at the same time that's like, pretty heavy at this point still. So then I ended up, long story short, I slid down the rocks eventually, got to the trail, again, way at the bottom, walking back up the trail that I'd already walked, wondering, okay, where did I miss it? So I got to the point where I went straight, and it was just, the trail was just as equal, perfectly marked, turned left, and I just went straight because and then I was talking to someone, they said it's like a thing with solo hikers. It's just so easy to get zoned out that you just keep going, and then suddenly you realize you don't actually know where you are. So it's not the trail's fault, is what I'm saying. It's definitely not.
What happened next? What was the rest of the trip like?
Yeah, I mean, it was just too much food, so I spent every day after that trying to eat as much as I could. It was a struggle at times. But I mean, I don't know, I might be exaggerating, but it actually worked out just fine because that second half I was on the western side of the Eagle Cap Wilderness, Steamboat Lake, Swamp Lake, North Mina Meadows, that area. And really there, if I was going to walk like 14 miles a day, I would just be done. I would have been done like 4 or 5 days early. So I'm happy to walk you through, for whoever's interested in the details, but just to backtrack even more to a broader question, like how I planned this. I wanted to be able to get back to my car, and I wanted to see all of the main routes of the Eagle Cap Wilderness. So I essentially, and I wanted to be able to, on my 7th day, to stop by the Wallowa Lake Resort, which is very close to the trailhead there. So I needed to be able to walk 6.5 days, pick up stuff, walk another 6.5 days, and be back at the trailhead. So to do that, I essentially had to do something like if you look at a map of the route, it's long story short, I went over multiple parts of the trail multiple times, like to go east and then south and then west, and then just to recover some ground to get into new areas. There was also a bit of I had to change plans. I don't know about dramatically, but I was trying to climb up to Matterhorn, Sacagawea from the west side, couldn't find the trail, ended up backtracking, walked 17 miles the next day, 9 of them in sandals because of blisters, and then climbed up the Matterhorn from the east side. That was not the plan at all. And that actually I had to sacrifice a rest day to be able to do that.
Fedor, how did the scenery change throughout this trip? What did it look like when you were out there?
So this was one thing I struggled with a little bit because I didn't have my phone. So I tried to take notes to kind of describe stuff, and I tried to really look. Like I would find something beautiful and I would just like stare at it, try to kind of remember it. And it was always a very frustrating exercise, knowing that it's impossible to actually communicate how beautiful like another meadow is, another bunch of wildflowers, like, blue wildflowers, yellow, like I think I counted like 4 or 5 different species of different kinds of yellow wildflowers that are like growing in these little islands in streams. Like you'd have like a brook with water flowing over these rocks, and then there's like these little mossy islands in between the water with like flowers growing on them. And like behind that is like, cliff with rocks. And then like it's just endlessly breathtaking, from the most famous places like Eagle Cap and Matterhorn to the slightly less famous places. So I think, so that would be about that. So in terms of how the landscape changed, so Glacier Lake, I would say, is has the most of this like epic kind of vibe, because you've got Eagle Cap right there, this big mountain with like just basically practically like a sheer drop, and then this ridge that goes to another peak called Glacier Peak, and the ridge looks like shark teeth, and facing you from Glacier Lake is just like practically a sheer drop of cliffs and like a glacier, like an actual glacier right there, which is melting into this crystal clear lake that has like little islands on it, like little islands with those wildflowers that I was telling you about, and subalpine fir, or white bark pine, or those are the 2 main trees up there. And from there, say you descend going down to Fraser Lake, and you enter this space between I don't know actually what they're called. So, but like imagine like there's a mountain ridge going in one direction parallel to another one, and they're both kind of curving around, and there's a stream pouring down in between the 2 of them that is just like all meadow. Then walking along that, like I was walking next to this big cliff mountains, and I saw this black hole in the mountains, and I was like, I want to check that out. So I dropped my backpack, climbed up there, like, I was like, one of those situations where I was like, I shouldn't be here. This is kind of freaky. Get to this hole. It's a mini cave, and I could see a goat prints in this dirt soil. And that was actually earlier that morning. I actually saw 4 mountain goats. Like, they were like 15 feet away from me. Yeah. Oh, and this was like right at the morning. So like, there's me, I'm looking at the mountain goats. There's a calf there, like a little baby, it's like a foot tall. And the sun is behind them shining through their white fur. Okay. It was
no phone to take a photo of it. We'll just have to
so
take your word for it.
Actually, so there was this couple, this is at the lake, and they were camping there. And as I was leaving, they're like, you got to check this out. There's these mountain goats right there. I thought, okay, sure, I'll go check it out. They're probably up on a mountain somewhere. Walk up, and they're like right there. I caught up with them later and asked them to send pictures. So they did. So it worked out. Yeah, see what you
provided a phone when you needed one.
Correct. And I will say, for the record, you're not actually supposed to be near that close to mountain goats. I saw them and I stood there. I didn't like approach them more, but I know that the Forest Service. Well, actually, I read this later on one of those big boards at an entrance at a trailhead that said, like, stay away from these guys because their horns are sharp. Like, they look brutal. I saw another mountain goat climbing up Matterhorn. Okay, so this mountain goat, going up Matterhorn, it's like, come to this spot where I see in front of me, a glacier hanging on a rock face, essentially, and then like a cliff with kind of like a ledge. And to my left, there's a flatter area there. It's like I climbed up. There's a flatter area with a meadow, so on and so forth. And I see this mountain goat like walking along this ledge, and like I can hear and see rocks falling, and then like dust rising, and then again like the sun is setting at this point. And like this dust cloud that started with these rocks falling from this goat. This is after it walks across the glacier, of course. Sorry to like jumble my timeline. But anyways, there's a goat walking across a glacier. There's a goat walking along a ledge, rocks falling, dust rising, caught by the sun. And then the goat disappears, just goes wherever goats go. And I keep on climbing. And I come over this rise. And who do I see? But the mountain goat staring at me. We looked at each other a little bit, acknowledged each other. Then the mountain goat went on its way, and I kept climbing. So Matterhorn is the most interesting thing ever. So like, imagine like dark volcanic rock. There's like a mountain, like a mountain ridge, and then it looks like marble, literally like liquid. It looks like liquid marble started to erupt. And then as it started falling, like vertically down, like imagine like the beginning of a fountain. Well, like you just turn on a fountain, it's got this like bulbous shape. And then just as the water started falling, like this marble just froze. Like that's what it looks like. But because it's relatively lower elevation, so it's like 9,400 or, forgive me, 9,826 feet. It's not like one of those mountains where it's just bare rock. Like there's so much life up there. There's just all these plants and grass and bees and bugs and whatever. So it's just incredible to be up there.
So it sounds like, at certain points you were seeing other people on the trails, were there long stretches where you were completely by yourself out there?
There wasn't really, I don't think there was a single day where I literally didn't see or hear a single person, especially the first half, because a lot of this stuff is pretty popular. But there was more of that with Steamboat Lake. Like, I think it also all depends on like the day of the week and that sort of thing. So yeah, there's a decent amount of people. I actually found folks to be really nice. Like the energy there was it's quite positive. I mean, especially in that first week. It was just weird because like I kept having these conversations with people where they would ask my name. Like, how often are you just like that like is an indicator of like the kind of, conversation you had. And it was just like all the time. It was like, oh, what's your name? Oh, Fedor, what's your name? And because just, if you run into somebody, if you talk to somebody, you just stop and you have like a full conversation, unlike, other places. And I think that was just because it's remote and because it's just so incredible that people are like, wow, like we are actually kind of experiencing this, this together.
How did your mindset change over the 2 weeks? Obviously, there were some, moments where you got a little freaked out. What was it like out there just being alone as a hiker? Not completely alone, there's other people, but what was going through your head?
So one thing I found that was interesting, so like when I was in my early 20s, maybe, just 20s period, I would sometimes go on these short solo trips to kind of clear my head, like 3 nights. I think maybe I went once for 4 nights. I'm not sure. This is in Pennsylvania, but I would always notice that like after the trip was over, I'd realize that I started the trip feeling like my head was just like a tin can of crap, like some bolts, some like cigarette butts, some, whatever trash, just like jangling, like that was the contents of my brain, that I had no control, and that there was no, like, it didn't feel like my thought process was always like a logical sequence of events. Like there was a lot of just random junk intruding. And that I would actually really notice that, become more aware of that when I was hiking, because I just had my thoughts and that's it. But that by the end of it, when I would be coming out of the trip, there would be just much more of this like centered mind, kind of like a central eye that does the thinking. And it did feel like during this trip, like for a really long time, it was this jumbled mass. Like there's constantly some random song playing in my head with no rhyme or reason. There were some songs that would just last like 2 or 3 days. And I'd think like, why this one in particular? Like no reason. I'd be thinking about things somebody said 10, 20 years ago. I'd suddenly randomly get mad at someone I haven't talked to in a long time, So, and this was obviously like this is a great reason to go with somebody, so you don't have to deal with this, that kind of garbage. But it was also interesting to think about, a lot of, relationships and just things in life. It's just a good space. And to also think about the damage something as basic as a cell phone does to a person's mind is how I feel about it. I think it's a really non-trivial, it has a very non-trivial effect on my engagement with the world. So, but yeah, I noticed, by the end of it, I definitely felt a lot more like these 3 pounds belonged to me, which was nice.
So I was going to ask, you did a lot of preparation, it sounds like, and kind of measured out your calories and like made, intentionally left your phone away. Were there things that you would do differently or wish you had prepared more for, or, what would you do differently next time? If anything.
I'm thinking about that one. Okay. I would have brought something to have like the thing that bothered me most was like, I was trying to conserve weight, so I didn't bring that many clothes, which meant that like I was really gross. And I washed my clothes, but it's just like, you can't do that every day, and every day you're walking like a really like you should, is I think what I'm saying. Did jump in a lot of lakes, and that was quite great. The food, I rationed for myself every day for my like snacks, and lunch was like every day I had a Snickers, every day I had Pop-Tarts, which I got from a thru hiker who did most of the Pacific Crest Trail. He said Pop-Tarts are great, just some instant sugar. 2 tortillas, one I had with peanut butter in a squeeze bottle, one I would have with hot sauce. By the way, hot sauce, like I cannot recommend enough hot sauce on these trips. And let me tell you what, like number one, I think it was incredibly helpful for me specifically in this trip because like of the mental effect that they would have. Like there was this one moment, day 3, I think, when I was trying to find the trail up to Matterhorn from the west side. And I'd already walked a lot of miles that day. Like I was exhausted, but I had this mindset of like, I have to find this trail. And I was also thinking like, why don't I also walk the first 4 miles of it up to, this map looks like it might be a little flatter there. I should be able to camp there. Why don't I just do that today? And I couldn't find it. So I'm like crawling through bushes. I'm going across Hurricane Creek and then back over Hurricane Creek with water flowing pretty fast on this big backpack. And I find like a whole pile of bear scat in these bushes where like the bushes are so thick, I can't see anything. I can't see much farther than like 5-10 feet. And I can feel myself just not really behaving very rationally, just getting a little bit overwhelmed, but still for some reason, not just accepting like, dude, just like camp here tonight. And then you have to, like, it's already getting late. And then I said, I'm going to take a little break. Whipped out a tortilla, whipped out that hot sauce, squirted the hot sauce, poured it out, and ate that. And it was just something. It was just something, just like clicked. Just something clicked in my brain. I was like, oh, now I'm going to get out my tent and set it up over here.
You were just hangry.
Yeah. Yes. But it just like cleared. It just brought me back to my center. That's what I'm saying.
That's that
hot sauce.
Cholula clarity.
It would be aardvark. Okay. Just to be clear. But I like the Cholula clarity. Yeah.
Anything else? I mean, I'm thinking to our listeners who are like, man, you are out there 2 weeks by yourself without a phone. The people whose safety is their first priority are probably like shaking their head listening to this. Is there anything safety-wise that you would have done differently, Fedor?
So what I actually did here is I wanted to spare the nerves of my close ones, because I think 2 weeks, like I would not be okay with, say, somebody just that's nuts. I think with no ability to make any sort of contact. So I got a Garmin from REI, and they're expensive, but it meant that I could send check-in messages every day, as many as I wanted actually, and I could send and or receive 10 actual written text messages, and I had an SOS option, so I could just if something really bad happened. I think it's just out of respect, you kind of need to have one of those if you're going on something like this. Yeah, it was at times it meant I wasn't actually disconnected. I would find myself oh, let me check my messages. But I think it's critical if you're going by yourself.
Can I also ask, what do you do to obviously you're walking, but when you're not walking to pass the time, do you bring a book with you? I mean, you're taking some notes about what you saw. I mean, was it just simply truly just I'm here and that's that? It's pure meditation mode.
Yeah, so I was thinking about using this trip as a way to kickstart my journaling again, because I used to journal a lot, it was every day, every morning for an hour or something like that, and I haven't been doing that, and I stopped for a long time. So I thought I was going to do that. I only started journaling the last 2 days or so. So otherwise, my content was just nature and this map. This map is what became a really important object, where I would write down where I camped, mark it with an X, and I just studied it and really got to know it. And I mean, and I'll say
listeners who can't see what we're seeing, Fedor is holding a real life paper map. That is Fedor hearing crinkling.
Yeah. And just the last thing I'll say, I mean, is just I think what I had going there is just the constant daily experience of just I cannot believe what I'm seeing. This is incredible.
Did you have expectations going in? And if so, did the Wallowas live up to those expectations?
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, I guess I was hoping to see a little bit fewer people, but I think it's becoming better known, and you can't really. It's not like I deserve to see the Wallowas more than someone else does. It was incredible. It's just, I think the one painful thing about it, you cannot capture it. You can only experience it in experiencing it. I can't describe it. I can't remember it, and I can't take a picture of it, even if I had a phone. It's trash next to the actual being there and experiencing it. And that's the thing, I think, that like not having a phone actually just makes so especially clear that like that is a futile attempt to capture something that you just can't. And it makes me feel a little sad, even like looking at this map of just like those moments. They're gone, you know, and the only way to get them is to go back. So, and we're all mortal. Gosh, what a struggle. Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
What life lessons.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I can relate to this in that I know the peace that even like a 2 or 3 day backpacking trip can give me, and also just like I feel lighter coming out of it, and I can't imagine, you know, that 5 times over, or even more so. So, would you do another long-term backpacking trip like this? What's next? Are you going to do the PCT?
Oh man, I don't know. I don't know about the PCT. Like, I think it would just depend on what I liked especially about the Wallowas is the feeling like I was discovering something completely new for myself. And just really studying it. So I think like to explore the Steens Mountains, for example, I would love that, or, you know, go somewhere in Idaho or something. And yeah, I don't know. It's something special. So yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Fedor, for telling us all about this trip. I can't wait to get back out to the Wallowas sometime soon and hopefully see some majestic mountain goats out there. All right, I think that will do it for today. So until next time, you can watch our videos on the Oregonians YouTube channel and view all of our travel and outdoors coverage on OregonLive.com/travel, as well as HereIsOregon.com.
And please leave us a rating or review if you enjoy the show. And if you want to support this podcast as well as our local journalism, please consider a subscription to Oregon Live. You can find details at OregonLive.com/pod support. Also, if you're a fan of the show and you're interested in potentially sponsoring it, you can get in touch with our marketing people at advertise@Oregonian.com.
This episode of the show was produced by me, Vicki Connor, alongside Teresa Mahoney and Dave Killen.
Stay safe and happy travels, everyone. Until next time, we leave you with this 10 seconds of silence.